am saying, okay, this guy at 80 years old gets locked up for doing this. And this other woman, basically walks. Nick, I'm just looking at the time. We're gonna have to go for a bit of a break. So we'll be back in a few minutes here, and we have some callers lined up as well. So be patient, and we'll be back in a few minutes here on the Nick and Joe Show on the Think Radio Broadcast Network. Welcome back to the Nick and Joe Show. I'm Joe, he's Nick, and I'm not sure where Nick has disappeared to, but I'm sure he's listening somewhere out there in the radio station in Killaloe, Ontario, in the studio out there, while I'm here in Ottawa at the studio in Ottawa. So, don't really know what's going on. I can hear some noise. I can hear some noise, which means Nick is around. He's just not responding to me. Oh, well, c'est la vie. Anyway, we were talking about, basically what turns out to be, I think, double standards in the way that men are treated and in our legal system. And I can hear Nick in my other... There. Nick, hi, how's it going? Nick is coughing. Okay, we're not talking COVID-19 here, I hope. Hello? Nick? Nick? Okay. I don't know what's going on with Nick. So, anyway, we've got Peter on line one.
Yes.
Peter, how are you tonight?
Pretty good. Good to hear you, Joe. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you fine. Yeah. How's it going?
Perfect. Pretty good. I was listening, and I didn't fully hear the reason why Nick is moving up to Pickle Lake, but that's quite a move. So I hope it's going to be good for him.
It is, and he can hear you, and I've got his mic turned off right now because I think he's listening to you with the delay. So, but anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't. Well,
but yeah.
The reason being, if you go back and listen to the podcast tomorrow or at any time in the future. He gets into a little bit of detail on that, but basically,
sure.
they offered him a job up there, good pay, and great fishing. That's my understanding. What more do you want when you're Nick Vandergraat? Good pay, great fishing.
Yeah, right on. Okay. Well, anyways, in terms of the topic of the day, I couldn't help but think that in terms of this double standard, and the Me Too, I couldn't help but think of our own Prime Minister and the way that he, was quick to, demand ultimate punishment for anyone who was, engaging in any sort of, where there was any question of consent involved. And then when it came to the Gropergate scandal that he was, in fact, accused of, it was, he should be treated with a completely other standard and not really have to have any sort of social or political consequence for his actions, even though, other people seem to bear the full brunt of their own sins, if you will.
That's a great point, Peter. I completely forgot about that, which just goes to show you again, there's a kind of a double standard. Here we are. We're struggling to make a comparison with again, I've forgotten his name again. The comedian,
Bing Crosby, probably.
Bill Cosby, and of course, we should be thinking immediately about Justin Trudeau, and there's still a lot of questions that are swirling around out there that the press hasn't really dug into, I don't think, adequately about what really happened when he was teaching at that school, and what were the circumstances behind his having to leave teaching. And there's plenty of evidence out there that he's been engaged in inappropriate sexual activity. Well, no, let me take it back. I guess it depends on how you define sexual activity. So sexual harassment probably is a more accurate way of saying it these days. I don't think anyone's accusing him of having had relations with anybody or underage. At least that's an accusation that I haven't heard. But certainly, there's been accusations of groping, etc. So yeah, no, it's a great example of a double standard. And other people would have had their political careers ruined for something like this. But Justin Trudeau, he gets a complete pass, just like he got a complete pass with the blackface business. I mean, really, how do you even in this day and age of wokeism, how do you survive that kind of a scandal? I just he was
young. He was only like 30 at the time, right? Just out of diapers, right? So
yeah, Nick's just on the other end here. Sorry, Nick. What did you say?
I just wondered if I could jump in on this. And
Nick, you're a co-host here. Nick, you could jump in anytime you want.
Well, I know that, but you didn't know I was able to. Because what's happening, the reason why I wasn't saying anything was because I'm plugged into the mixer board so I can hear Peter's call. And I wanted to hear what he had to say first before I switch back over to the laptop so that I could actually contribute something.
Now, you revealed your trade secrets, Nick. We're supposed to be...
Yes, I know, but well, it's just what you do. It's live radio, and it's what you do to get things done. So let me address a couple things Peter said so far. First of all, Pickle Lake, it was the whole thing was completely a surprise to me. It deals with an airline. I'm an aviation nut. The money was great. The fishing's fantastic, and the flies are intense. So that was, in a nutshell. Other than the flies, and by flies I don't mean house flies. I mean black flies and mosquitoes. They have a black fly festival every summer up here, and they have an ice up there, and they also have an ice worm celebration in the wintertime. So when you have 9 feet of snow in the course of a winter, you tend to want to celebrate something, and that's as good as it gets.
Sorry, did I hear that correct? Ice worm?
Yep.
Okay, we're going to have to talk a little bit about this offline, Nick. That sounds a little bit suspiciously like a tequila worm.
It shouldn't be, because if you're going ice fishing, you want to use ice worms.
It still sounds like a tequila worm to me.
Anyway, so as far as the double standard that Peter is talking about, and Peter, if you're still there, I hope you are, because then I'll switch back over if you've got anything else that you wanted to add. But Justin Trudeau is a poster boy for this stuff, and you're quite right. I'm glad you reminded us of this, because the quote that I remember the most about that particular incident was he said, "Well, I don't remember it the same way she does." Well, I'm sorry, that's not good enough, because if you believe in the We Too movement or Me Too movement, you always believe the victim, except in his case. And this goes back to, as we were talking before, the double standard. You can't have it both ways. So it's enough to just, you just want to take the man and shake him and say, no, you at least have to provide some decent kind of defense, or face the charges, or answer the bell, whatever you want to say. But you can't just slough it off and say, well, she remembers it differently than I do because we're supposed to believe her, not you. So this is part of the reason why we've got to get rid of Justin Trudeau one way. I'm talking just politically here now, one way or another. So I'm going to switch back over so I can hear anything else that Peter has to say.
Okay.
Well, I mean, politically, this election, if all of these sorts of incidents that we've been bombarded by, quite frankly, for the last few years of Trudeau having double standards, not just on this, but on other things as well. And just always seem to being, able to get, just maybe there's just so many that nobody can latch on to one single thing and say, anybody else, their career would be over, politically speaking. He's done so many things that any other person, it would be irreparable damage to their political career. They'd be out. They wouldn't be if they were in the public spotlight at all, it would be because they were disgraced and not in politics anymore, right? And for true. Some reason, I think that's
so.
Yeah, it's the double standard. So we got to remind Canadians of it. That's all. That's my point.
So, Peter, listen. So while we've got you, what are your views on how the election campaign seems to be shaping up right now? You have any thoughts?
Well, I guess the reason I said, if this campaign accomplishes, exposing Trudeau's hypocrisy and his double standards, it will have served some good. I guess I hope in some ways that the way he called it not the middle of summer, but, in the middle of vacation, August vacations, if that doesn't ring out to Canadians as being a naked attempt at a power grab, like what does? Harper did call a summertime election, but it was so long that by the time we were actually voting, we were well into the normal run of everyday life. School had gotten back in, it happened sometime after Thanksgiving. It was extraordinarily long, which, made Canadians sort of turn their head and say, what's going on here? This one is so extraordinarily short that I think Canadians might say, what's going on here? And I hope they do, because it's a naked power grab. That's it, from his point of view.
And what, during the first segment, we were talking about some of the proposals that the Federal Conservative Party have put forward. And, I'm saying this tongue in cheek, but it turns out that, perhaps Justin Trudeau and the Liberal Party were correct that Aaron O'Toole really does have a secret agenda. Really, he's been a Liberal all along. And it just seems like tactically or strategically, the Conservative Party is trying to outflank the Liberals to the left somewhat. I don't know. Do you share that view, or do you have any comments about the Conservative Party platform?
Yeah, you may have summed it up right there. In terms of, you take the Liberal policy idea, you knock a few little, corners off of it, maybe a rough edge or something that might strike the odd Canadian as being a little excessive, and presto, you've got the Conservative one, and it's sort of a mirror image, maybe not quite as clear, but it's hard to tell the difference from some angles, at least from what I've seen. So, it's a pretty discouraging choice when the Conservatives seem to think that Canadians like what they have, except maybe they're bored and want a different color to carry on the same agenda. That's what I'm.
Yeah, well put. I think that's a very good way of summing it up as well. Anyway, I don't know. We'll have to see. The polls certainly have been moving in favor of the Conservatives. Have they peaked too early? Has Justin Trudeau and the Liberals cratered too early? Remains to be seen. 3.5 weeks left, so we'll have to wait and see how things are going to go with it. Anyway, look, Peter, thanks for the call. We appreciate it. And, feel free to give us a call anytime. And, by the way, don't forget, if you want to listen to the rest of the podcast, if you missed it earlier on, you can still catch it at thenickandjoeshow.com. It'll be up sometime tomorrow morning, if not tonight. So anyway, there it is. So thank you to Peter, and